Periscope, and we are live on YouTube. So, to everybody out there, Hola, Konnichiwa, Salaam, Ciao Namaste. Peace to all. This is the Pink Elephant in the Room conversation, and we will be discussing about just the power struggle between the male and female energy of who we are. And for many of us, we in today's society we see problem when we talk about with males, and whether it's payment issue, being paid more, whether it's being harmed more, or anything else in between, we see that side for the female side, but we also need to make sure we are importantly seeing both sides. That includes the male side of things included, where there are issues that are going on for people of that, pretty much what's going on to people on that side of the story. So what we will do is I'm going to go into detail about just simply the male energy, both what's observed and known, and then on top of that, the things that aren't said on top of that. And for someone like myself who's lived with women most of my life, um, I have a great understanding of both sides because of the fact of how I've had to live my life since I was born. Um, so I will begin with simply talking about the male energy. We live, of course, in a world that is known as a matriarch society, or better yet, I'm sorry, not matriarch, a patriarch society, of where it is a man's world, as we call it, where we feel might is right, power is everything. And the truth be told, that none of that is important and none of that is helpful or works for the world that you live in today. Might is not right, and power is not everything. Strength evolves and grows who you are, and observation is key to who you are. And this is something we do not see um, on top of this. And through this whole conversation, I will be going over the conversation of simply um, the problem on both sides, for both male and female, that we are unwilling to look at on both sides. Again, we don't see strength as important. We don't see emotion as important. We believe that emotion should never be said or anything for people who live as a man. That it's not good to be emotional. It's not good to cry and show your feelings. You get shamed in a sense for having feelings, having emotions of any kind, as though it's not right. It's unnatural. But the problem with that is that emotions are who you are. Your soul is is a spectrum to that. Listening to your feelings is like listening to the ear, the instinct of the soul itself, and understanding that. Women have this when we call intuition. They have this easily where they feel a sort of energy about things. So understanding those parts for men is vitally important, but we live in a world where we're taught not to feel our emotions and to think only logically, um, only think with our minds or anything, that we shouldn't really care in a sense. And of course we do care. Because we find love at some point in our life. But the ideal that we feel strength is, might and power are everything, is flawed. We On top of that, with what you see in the world going on, of course, when we talk about people who aren't getting the attention on the female side, and that more men do most things that get them into certain areas of power, and do to our ideal that, for most at least, that we don't believe you're at that criteria or that you should be doing other jobs and stuff. That is vitally true in some areas. But at the same time, it's important to observe. And when I mean jobs, it could be any job, from just doing fast food to doing Wall Street to publishing books to banking and so on and so forth. It is slowly being accepted, and it's vitally important to notice that. For example, there's a woman on Wall Street. I don't remember her name, but she just got into the working in the stock exchange. Um, she is one of the first in a while, I would say, to work in the stock exchange. Before, I'd say in the 1960s during World War II, there were women who were running the stock exchange until the men who were fighting in the war came back home and had actually started to go back to those things or work on those things, etc., etc. However, on the opposite end, you have many men who, and this is something you have to understand in the sense that you have men who, of course, people think they're horrible people and so on and so forth because all of them, we feel, think with their penises. Or better yet, a lot of them at least, not all. But when someone else comes around and we immediately dodge them because we don't feel they're up to par or anything, and we don't look to give that person a chance because we don't see it from that side of who they are as a person, and we prefer a certain masculinity. And when someone like that comes into your life, you're not willing to see that part of them. So you have those type of men who at times get frustrated. You live in a world right now which is very interesting. It's good. There are many good things going on, but at the same time, there are many things that are difficult. And it's not even good or bad. It's just there are many positive outlooks, and then of course there are negative outlooks that are happening at this point in time. For for females, of course, I think it's great that I see a lot more females being able to get the jobs they desire. But at the same time, there are a lot of men who desire jobs or desire to do things, and they feel they can't get into it because mostly women are in that field, which is an interesting thing to watch. And most people aren't willing to watch it, but that is a thing that is actually happening at this point in time, is you are now seeing more women get jobs and less men. It's good, or excuse me, not good. That's a positive thing to see. But at the same time, it isn't about more women getting this or more men getting this. It's about the fairness. That's the key for everybody getting what they desire out of life. It should not be one. It should not be a stigmatism. It shouldn't be a stereotype that women only do this and this alone, and no men can come in here. And then the vice versa, that men only do this and this alone, and women can come here. It needs to be cut in half and done with. So allowing people to have the opportunity is vitally important. And then, of course, you have for many males out there with rape accusations, and of course, I'm I know this is a very touchy subject, but at the same time, it needs to be brought up for the simple fact that yes, there are women who are actually being harmed by these people, but on the other side, there are men who aren't doing these things and are told that they are. And this is due to the power. This is what I mean by this power struggle. You see, the interesting thing about men and women, men, they use power in a sense to manipulate and feel that they can do whatever they want to whomever they want. But women, they use their body or anything. They're believing they're innocence. And I'm giving both sides, by the way, for this. To make you believe that I couldn't harm anyone because I'm not as strong as he is. And here's something I want to bring up. There was a story about 2 days ago about a man who who was raped by his ex. Now, for most of us, we might think, "Oh, that's impossible." So let me elaborate on what happened in the story. Um, in the story, what simply happened was the fact that he had left for vacation and she had broke into his house. When he came in, she had a machete in hand, and she told him to lay on the bed, and he laid on the bed and everything, and he told him to take off his clothes. She took off his clothes, and then she pretty much screwed him in bed. And what had happened at that time for the crime she was given was for battery, I believe, breaking and entering, and something else, of course, but it was not rape. This is a The interesting thing is the dynamic of the two standards, in a sense that there is a one standard for one person, another for another person, and we don't see it in a different kind of light. That in that situation, that was rape. No matter what, he didn't he didn't willingly or freely, or as they say, consensually ask or give sex. He was forced into it. So we give one standard for women. We do this also when it comes to court cases for children, when it comes to court cases for divorce. And we are unwilling to see and observe the flaw, and especially law, for the male and female energy of what happens, that of how you treat people. Here's another example of this. There was a guy who was taking care of his child, uh, who was 7 years old, and the child was in tears because the mom had pretty much filed a court case and everything to take her child away from the dad, who has been taking care of him since birth, and he had no choice but to give it back. And that is a very flawed thing to do, and a very unfair thing to do for someone who you don't know where their mind was at or what they were doing. Do you think it would be fair to the father to take away that person if he's doing a good job taking care of it? On top of that, the child doesn't even want to leave his father because of how important he cares for him being in his life. You have to be willing to see the importance of those flaws, that we create a system where we see one person's weak, but they have a power to implement and manipulate through believing that because I'm weak, I deserve more power for this and that. Then you have the other side where you have the males who are might is right, power is everything, that you are nothing to me and I can do whatever I want because I'm a man. And that is also flawed. Um, and it's something that has to change within both of us, in a sense. It can't be a simple okey doke with those ideals. And that's why I tell people all the time, it's vital that you observe everything that happens around you. Don't just simply see things and think, no, it's that way and it's that way only. This isn't about a left or a right or any of that. It's to observe what's in front of you as so, and constantly research and constantly grow the self to understand that part of who you are, because of how vital and how important it is to understand both sides, and to understand the sides that are never explained even on both sides. Now that we have that down, we will get into the female side of things. The both the positive and negative aspects, just like male and female. We already went into a bit of it already, but we will look at the positive outlook. It's vitally important to see the fact that many women don't get the opportunities that men get, and I feel as though it's important that they grow and get those opportunities. If a woman desires to be a billionaire or a millionaire at the highest position, she should have the same chance as the guy who is the male, who gets the CEO position, who gets the pristine position as a doctor, who gets the positions for architecture, whatever works or whatever that person desires to create in their life, they should be allowed the same fairness as those who are male. If a woman wants to be a businesswoman, if she wants to be in finances, whether it be again in stocks, whether it be in real estate, whether it be in who knows what else. But even though there are many men who create corporal entities such as those, she should have the same opportunity as them to create whatever she desires, grow whatever she desires. And you're slowly seeing that, but of course, you're also not seeing it. It is happening. Because, like I said earlier, you're seeing a lot more women who are able to get jobs in different areas, and you're seeing a lot more women who are getting different positions that most women usually don't get. And that's fantastic. That's a good thing that's going on in everything. And I find that amazing one way or another because it allows evolution to kick in and grow who we truly are. Um, and seeing that part of who we are. And on top of that, the other thing that's vitally important is growing that feminine energy within who you are. But what I would like to say is the importance of growing both sides of those energies within all of us, one way or another. We, you see, too much of anything is not a good thing. And this is where you need balance between both sides. You can call it yin and yang, feminine energy, whatever you'd like to call it. These are both important pieces to both sides of who you are. It is not just about woman, it is not just about man. It's about both energies, understanding one for the female energy also. It's important to say again that when you're talking about like the Me Too movement and things of that nature, that though I'm not saying that these things are not true, but at the same time I'm saying that there are many people who do this to amp who they are. For those people and those women out there, I say that you constantly grow that and make sure that you tell what you feel. Don't be afraid to say what you feel inside who you are because of how vitally important it is to grow that part of who you are when things like that are actually literally happening. But also, on the other side of that, is the side that I've seen too many people who've been caught up in such things just because women have that type of power to yell out, like the boy who called the wolf, to yell out that they've been harmed and it be a flaw mistake. For example, there was a guy who went to jail for 2 years because I believe it was in Canada. If not in Canada, it might have been in the US. But he went to jail for 2 years due to, I believe, the lady saying that he got raped, and she used text messages that she gave to the cops. And she showed these text messages showing that what he did. However, what they did not realize was that she had erased some of the text messages to make it come off as though it was that way. And the guy's sister was wondering if they could see backups of this. And when she found the backups, I believe this was a conversation on Facebook, she found that she was lying about the whole thing, but by the time she found it, his sentence was nearly over. These are real things that many women do to harm people. Another example would be with a police officer, I believe, who was doing his job in Texas, and a woman had said that he was sexually harassing her and everything, and to the point where this got on the radio about this cop that he should be in trouble and everything. They had the cameras and everything else, and even though that's a real thing that does happen as well, it saddens my heart because of the fact that he did none of those things. And since those things happen one way or another, she didn't even get in trouble for the situation, but the thing is that there was nothing that happened. There was nothing that was introduced that changed the situation or changed how things would be. So you have to be willing to see that that power struggle is vitally important, using your body in a sense to make it seem as though a person is the bad guy, that he's harming you in a sense, and at times that's not even the truth of what's going on. You have to see those sides one way or another because it's vitally important. But we're going to actually continue this later. We're going to do more on this, and we're still going to talk more about this, but at this time we're going to stop here. So to everybody out there, just realize that you are the gods, the goddesses,